What's up, YouTube? Card Games United here. I've got Lee, Andre, and Ryan here to do a set review for VG-V-BT02, Strongest Team AL4. There's a lot of letters and numbers in this one.
So, personally, from this set, I'll be building Pale Moon and Murakumo.
I will absolutely be building DIs, and I hope to be able to build Shadow Paladins.
I might build Shadows if, like, you know, the extra money comes in.
I actually love Shadows just because they've set them up as a Reckless control clan, which I absolutely love that archetype. So just the ability to play that before Narukami comes out is gonna be awesome.
Yeah, problem is, it's just all the hype and popularity around it's raising the prices up, so...
That is a problem, yes.
So, like, I figured for the price of one deck, I could build two decks, one of them being competitively viable, and also Pale Moon just looks fun as hell.
Isn't Murakumo like $60?
Yeah, I got it for 55 off Ideal.
It's freaking crazy.
It's a little more expensive now, because, like, usually when the first initial batches of, like, splits run out, they usually raise the price a little bit, and Card Fighters Underground was selling it for $175 or $185 because of how well it's doing in Japan, but... Oh, I grabbed mine for 55. Pale Moon, I think I paid a little bit more of a premium because I wanted that deck in time for a regional, because it's super fun. It's not as good as Murakumo, but I just love super fun aggressive Excel Clint. So I did order that one from Card Fighters Underground for 175. So a little bit pricey from what I can get in Ideal, but for, you know, shipping before release date, get all this stuff, and they give you like a free mat and free sleeves. It's pretty good.
Alright, well... Ryan, since you're new to these, I'll just explain how we usually do things. We usually like to talk about just some preemptive thoughts about what's going to be good, what's not going to be so good, and then we go in depth through each of the VRs. Then we touch on any interesting triple or double Rs, and well, we do give each of the VRs a grade out of 10, and then we give the set as a whole a grade out of 100.
Okay. Before we get into that, anything in particular you're looking to build from this set?
Nope.
What clan are you looking to build in Vanguard or waiting for in Standard?
I'm waiting for golds.
Yeah, they're looking pretty good.
Well, honestly, because these guys right here suck at predicting the meta, they kept saying before the clan really got, like, how do I say it?
In fairness, I never said that.
I say it because I like trolling you.
Yeah, okay, mister. You know, when one card was announced, oh, this set's gonna be bad. It can't call from the deck. Oh, it can only call from the top 3. Oh my god, this is gonna be so bad.
Which is a topic for our next set review for the time being. So, the competitive viability of all 4 of these clans.
A lot of people are complaining that none of these clans can beat OTT, which I digress. Shadows seem like they're a consensus tier 1 based on what they're doing in Japan, with its tough match being OTT. But it seems like they do well against every other clan, especially Excel clans. Pale Moon seems like they're one of those clans that could potentially pressure OTT. And I think they're doing alright. Like, not as good as Murakumo, but there seem to be a decently viable option. Murakumo, I think, has been the 3rd best performing deck in Japan, behind OTT and Shadow Paladin, particularly because its OTT matchup is really good. And the deck is super cheap, like we just said. So, I'd recommend highly grabbing that if you're looking to play, like, competitive Vanguard for, like, pennies. And then DI, I hear, has been struggling. In Premium...
DI has been struggling in Standard, just because hitting that 13k soul barrier is so hard.
In Premium, though, it
13,
seems like...
13,000 cards in your soul would be incredibly difficult.
In Premium, though, I've heard they can get 5 Vanguard attacks because of the Pneumatic Assassin.
Actually, this would probably be a good pivot point to just move straight into our discussion on No Life King Death Anchor. He's not the first VR, but he's the first one we're going to talk about because A, I want to talk about him, and B, it relates very well to why DIs aren't doing so hot, unfortunately. So, his first effect, Auto Vanguard Circle, when placed, Soul Charge 1, and it gets 2k for each card in Soul. And then his second ability, Auto Vanguard Circle, at the end of a battle, it attacked if you have 13 or more cards in Soul. Counterblast 1, put a card from hand into Soul, put 3 rear guards into Soul, ride a card from Soul as stand, and that unit gets crit +1. Protect Gift, 12k, obviously. So, this card, obviously, on its own, seems to have such a huge impact. But
It's a very good card.
It is a very good card on its own in a vacuum, but it does contribute to both why they are doing well in premium and not so well in standard. Because for those of you out there who have been playing Grand Blue and knowing that it sometimes takes 4 turns to get to 10 drop zone and literally everything you use goes to the drop zone, you can probably see why it might be difficult to get to 13 soul.
Because you just can't guard, except for that one triple R they have, the grade 1, that it does go into the soul when you guard with it, but yeah, for the most part it seems the deck is just very slow.
It can sometimes hypothetically take as much as turn 5-6, though a lot of these numbers did come in before Blue Dust was announced, and since Blue Dust does have pretty much the highest soul charging potential in the deck, I am interested to see if that raises the ceiling for this deck, lets it get better in the meta. An interesting thing about this card is it has been doing well in premium as a grade 3, which I think is almost unprecedented at this point. Because premium is still about strides.
Because you can get about 5 attacks off this dude.
Absolutely. It synergizes very well with Enigmatic Assassin, which, if one card has created more Trolls DI decks, I do not know it. So yeah, this card gives you a lot of power attacks, has a very high ceiling, but is kind of inconsistent.
I think that's because a lot of the DI support's a little bit lackluster. Like, I know that you have, I think, Gwen the Reaper as one of their other triple Rs, which it's an okay card, but like its main selling point, I think, would be some of the control you can use it, and you need to have, I think, what, 10 soul, I think, to get the pop off? Yeah. Which kind of, it limits a lot of its potential.
Again, a lot of the problem in Standard is that you don't have enough soul charging tools, which again is why I think the deck stands to benefit a lot from Blue Dust once he finally drops.
CR seems to be very similar to Perfect Riser, where in a vacuum Perfect Riser is a very good card, it's just that his support around him sucks.
I wouldn't say it sucks, though, is the problem, because the quality is all perfectly good. It's just that it doesn't have quite enough tempo in the modern meta. So if the meta ever slows down, this deck will definitely be in a position to take high spots. B, the more they can speed up the soul charging this deck.
Yeah, so I think in its second wave of support, this is going to be a very good deck. But as of right now, I'd say you could definitely take it to a tournament and not get curb stomped. I think you could potentially do well with it, but I just think there are better options from this set and in previous sets.
So, with that said, I still want to give Death Anchor a 4 out of 5.
Yeah, I think Death Anchor by itself is a very good card. I mean, you could argue about the rest of his support, but, it is what it is. Like I said, I think DIs, they might not be the best, but they're certainly okay.
What's your grade out of 5?
Yeah. I would say I would go with maybe a 4. Like I said.
Any thoughts, Ryan?
3 out of 5.
Oh my.
Well, what do you think its issue is?
Well, from what you guys were talking about, I'd say its issue is lack of synergy with the Dark Irregulars, basically.
I think there is probably worth mentioning that its cost can be a little bit inhibitive. Like, for example, having to put 3 rear guards in the soul seems like you could have a bit of a difficult time, like, having rear guards keep trigger effects. So I think that could be one point against it.
Well, maybe you're supposed to attack with it last.
You are, which is what I'm saying, but like...
But I don't see that so much as a downside to the card itself, because you can set up synergies with putting stuff into the soul, and you can set up for its own effect by shoveling in a Demon Eater. So I don't see that too much as a downside, but yeah. Ultimately, it just based on the restand is kind of slow. I still want to give it a 4 because it's an amazing finisher in and of its own right.
That first ride, though.
Not a great first ride. It does have that going against it. So the proper first VR of the set, Phantom Blaster Dragon. Counterblast 1, retire 3 of your rear guards. Your opponent chooses 3 of their rear guards and retires them, and this unit gets 15k on a crit. That's an act. It's also got the once per turn act of if your opponent has 4 or less cards in damage, Soul Blast, and no grade 3s, Soul Blast a... I just said and no grade 3s.
A grade 3. Soul Blast A grade 3.
And no rear guards. They have to have no rear guards to resolve this effect, I'm sorry.
So,
then you Soul Blast the grade 3, then you damage them.
rest in peace for Aqua Force being competitively viable.
I love reckless control!
You know, a lot of people gave Shadow Paladins a lot of crap throughout, like, the reveals of this set, but as a whole, Shadow Paladins are looking like a very deadly deck. They have, like, the perfect amount of
I think
plussing.
a lot of people looked at it and they were expecting Shadow Paladins to be, like, straight broken, because that has happened with a lot of Shadow Paladin support in the past.
Well, hold on. So, in Season 1 of Vanguard, the original Season 1, not the remake Season 1, in Season 1, Shadow Paladins, like Phantom Blaster Dragon, was not good.
Well, they still had a lot of really powerful cards in Season 1. They had, like, Nemain and Maka.
She was a 3K base.
She was 3K base, but nothing else
Cards.
nothing else netted you cards as fast as she did.
Until they came out with the Revenger.
Until they came out with the Revenger, but that was 2 seasons later.
Yeah.
So,
Like, as of right now, the deck is shaping like it can plus easy. It's got a very good early game just from playing against the Trial deck, for God's sakes. Because of the Blaster Dark, Twin Drive, and even Maka being able to get you a +0 call like Al and Royal Paladins. And then being able to control you a little bit. Sure, you get to choose the units, but that still hurts. Especially when you think about it, this deck has a lot of good retiring power. From Phantom Blast and Dragon not even being once per turn, if you can afford the cost. You've got Blaster Dark, you can just pop things for a counter blast. There's the other
yeah, like I
player.
said, it's reckless control. The whole idea is just increase the card burden on your opponent, and eventually that breaks them. That's, like I said, it's a playstyle that I really love. I can see a lot of people not seeing the viability in it just because you do hand a degree of esoteric control to your opponent, which is generally not advisable. But just the fact that you're continuing to remove those cards from them and you're continuing to apply pressure with your attacks eventually should just be too damaging.
And the deck has, like, great matchups across the board. Like, the only thing, obviously, is the OTT matchup, just because Promise Starter can't be retired. But even then, still retiring a lot of their rear guards increases the card burden on OTT. You know, Excel decks don't have any more viability anymore because Aqua Force losing 3 rear guards and Nova Grapplers losing 3 rear guards kind of neuters them. I mean, those decks will have to go first and hope they can get an early game rush on you to beat Shadow Paladins. Force Clans will even be hurt by this too. Like, you know, Spike Brothers will definitely be hurt by losing a lot of their pieces for Siegfried clone. Royal Paladins, you know, that deck already wasn't competitively viable as it is, so just having that sort of like reckless control of Royal Paladins is definitely going to hurt them.
That is before the Exculpate.
Yeah, Exculpate's going to be fun. That's going to be fun.
So we will have to talk about that sooner or later.
But yeah, this deck's good. I mean,
yeah. The deck is good. This card is good. It doesn't have too many features in and of its own right that make it stand out particularly. The second effect is kind of whatever, and the
it's
first
kind of like the one for Gigarex with Tachikaze in that it just exists just to be an option, but you mostly probably don't use it.
And then that first effect isn't so amazingly overpowered that I'm willing to call this card like amazing by its own right.
Because it is a -3. I mean,
but it does fit very well in the deck. I'm still willing to give it like a 3.5.
yeah.
So that's my rating, 3.5.
I think it is worth mentioning, by the way, that there probably exists a decent budget build with Shadow. Well, I mean, budget, and that their triple R's are still pretty expensive. But if you can't afford Phantom Blast Dragon, I think you probably could make a list that runs Dark Dictator as the main boss, with like the other grade 3 that calls from the top of its deck as the backup.
You do have to skip out on a lot of the retire options.
Yeah, like you probably
that
wouldn't.
case.
I don't think you'd probably run Nemain, since Nemain, I think, from at least the gameplay videos I've seen of it, Nemain literally exists just to provide like cheap retire fodder for Phantom Blast Dragon, which I think nothing else in that deck retires for cost. So, I don't know if you played the main in that deck. Maybe just play some grade 1 that gains power, but...
You also can't play the blasters.
Yeah.
Other than Blaster Dark himself, which is sort of the meh card on its own.
But I think there does exist like a Dark Dictator deck that budget players could certainly go for. So that's something I like about Shadows.
But I suppose that's more for the ultimate review of the set than these individual VR reviews.
Mm-hmm. But the rest of the sport's amazing around it, so, you know.
So the next card we have to talk about, Dueling Dragon Zanbaku. Only one skill, which I think is a first for VR. Act Vanguard once per turn, Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, search your deck for up to one card with a Rester in its name, call it 2 rearguard. Shuffle your deck, this unit gets 5k until end of turn. If right arrestor and left arrestor are on your rearguard, your opponent cannot ride grade 3s during their next turn. During their next ride phase, rather.
Yikes. Yeah, this card's good.
Not really. So it's just restricted to the ride phase, right?
Well, it is just restricted to
right arrestor, though, if you don't know, right arrestor is counterblast 2. If you have a left arrestor on the field, you can counterblast 2, put a card from your hand into the soul, and your opponent cannot stand their vanguard. So it's kind of like the old machining play style. That combo is difficult to pull off because
it does bear mentioning that, again, these reviews are specifically for the cards themselves and not the cards around them, which we'll talk more about later in the video.
Mm-hmm.
Although there is a good point to be made here. First off, this thing will probably not see a lot of life in premium at any point because there's just too many ways to
I don't even
get
know
around that
direction
effect.
You could go with Murakumo.
And I have seen a lot of people argue that just the preventing your opponent from riding is a good enough thing to make this deck live.
It depends on the matchup. There are a lot of decks that consistently need to rewrite, like OTT, which is why it does so well against OTT. Them not getting their Protect gifts is pretty major. There are clans like Aquaforce and Novagrappa that they only need the 1 Excel circle. But I mean, you're not going to see those clans with Shadow Paladins running around. Forest clans, it's debatable. It's definitely going to hurt D-Robos not being able to rewrite.
Well, that's the thing, because...
Actually, no, it would be the opposite.
Because against something like that, first off, yeah, DP rides during the battle phase.
Yeah, so actually, they'd actually do well against this deck.
And then if you just compare something like, say, Meg Colony or Royals to a degree, let's see, what else? Just anything that just needs that one specific Vanguard and doesn't really care about riding anything else. Tachikaze. I don't know what this deck or this card in particular really does against them. You do have the full combo in the deck itself, but
it's actually worth noting that Maelstrom in particular might see more play because he can restand even if they fully lock you down. So that'll actually be
they can if you make the 4 attacks without the Vanguard. And one of the issues here is that you do lose a card for that combo, so you can be at a defensive disadvantage. I think Murakumo coming out of this set definitely has the most interesting potential to it. I've seen a lot of people say it's good. I've seen some people say it's bad. I think because it's got a lot of crazy strategy aspects to it, right? You've got to know what you're facing. There's a couple different builds you can run of it that do different things.
Like Mandala Lord. That's interesting.
So, for Murakumo overall, there's a lot of interesting features to talk about coming out of this set. This card in particular, I think, has just a little too many holes for me to give him a good rating. Because there's too much that can go wrong with just preventing your opponent's Vanguard from riding. And if you say run out of left or right arresters, you just die.
Mm-hmm. It's like the same problem with Alfred, King of Knights Alfred.
Mm-hmm. So, I'm going to give this card like a 2.
I'm going to give it a 3 because it is a +1 and it does gain power. So
that is something. It is a +1. So I'll give it a 2.5.
It can hit it gains 5k, so it can hit Force Vanguards unboosted, so that does help.
Yeah, I
With the rest of its support, it's much better.
With the rest of its support, it's much better, but the card itself, just too questionable. So the final VR for the set, Golden Beast Tamer. Continuous Vanguard. If you have 5 or more units, all your units in the front row get plus 3k. Auto Vanguard. When it attacks, counterblast 1. Put a card from your hand into soul and call up to 2 cards from your soul to rearguard. So that second ability can technically be a plus. Do you know what you never use it as? A plus. Because the whole point of this card is just, hey, let's pump out some more attacks.
Let's pump out some more Nightmare Doll Alice's and then use that to combo during the battle phase. Or pump out some...
To pump out some more attacks!
Pump out a triple trapezist and gain another card. Or a jumping Jill and gain another card.
And pump out some more attacks!
Yeah, this card is definitely one of those high roll cards. I mean, it is a -1 from your hand, so that is a bit of a concern. Pale Moon has the same problems as Aqua Force and Nova.
Yeah, if you do the standard thing of just call over an already rested column, it ends up being a -1 overall.
But
there are some cards that get around that and go into soul, so there are synergies to consider there.
So, this card definitely opens up a lot of combo potential for Pale Moon, and that's important to note. Also, the 3k to the front row doesn't cost a counterblast.
Kinda have to have that in Excel clans nowadays, unfortunately.
You know who does cost a counterblast, though, for that?
Maelstrom?
Yeah.
Yeah. Does he have to have 5 or more units?
No.
There you go!
But you kind of need to anyways, for Aqua Force to be viable.
So, this card overall, it's definitely a very aggressive card.
I can tell you're not surviving 2 great 3 turns if you're playing this card.
Yeah. It's one of those sort of save or die situations. I'm perfectly willing to call this like a... I don't know. This one's a bit hard to place because it is one of the first solid multi-attack aggression engines in one card that we have seen out of V-Series.
I think it does everything that Pale Moon needs to do. It's 3.5. I mean, especially since Pale Moon has a lot of options just to toolbox their soul, so you can pull out almost anything you really need. Like I said, Nightmare Doll Alice, Purple Trapezist, Jumping Jill, Starting Presenter, whatever you want.
I kind of want to give it a 4 just because I see that there's a lot of versatility you can manage to bake into this one card, which I don't know. I could see this card definitely still seeing play in a lot of future versions of this deck. It would be a little better if there was just a bit more to the effects, but for what it does, it's a very solid card.
Better than the old Golden Beast Tamer.
Fuck you.
But no, this deck's gonna be fun to play though.
Okay, so other notable high rarity cards, Maka, Karen, Nemen, all very good advantage engines, help you set up for Phantom Blaster Dragon.
Staples, I think, forwards and Shadow Paladin is no question.
Absolutely. Fushimi doesn't countercharge.
No. They're gonna play that 4 anyways, because
he gets 5k.
What else do you have? I mean, I suppose being able to snipe back row units is cool.
I mean, having something that can attack for numbers in Excel clans is always important. It's just a little disappointing, but that's kind of all it does.
And it's kind of
unless there's like something seriously important in the back row to take out.
The only triple R they have, but that's what makes the deck so cheap.
This is true. Gwyn the Ripper and Vracolicos. Gwyn, I think, is very good. Offers you some control in premium, or not premium, standard, which ironically goes at a premium. Gets you a little soul charge. Vracolicos definitely has some advantage in terms of just being able to use him in the most efficient ways, discard and put him in soul and all that. I am a little disappointed that there's not more to Vracolicos, that he only does things when you guard with him or when he is soul charged.
So otherwise, it's kind of useless on the field. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess if you do have to play him as a booster, I mean, I suppose you could just use him to go pay for Death Anchor's cost, but.
Mm-hmm. Then we have Nightmare Doll Alice and Purple Trapezist.
You're definitely going to play those at 4 in Pale Moon. I mean, I see some builds that run Alice at like 2 or 3, and I'm just like, why?
Yeah, these seem like absolute staples for Pale Moon right
Because
now.
just like the other Pale Moon grade 3 you'd run is Artilleryman, and that card's garbage. First of all, the draw effect is at -2. I mean, it's a -1 because I guess it does help set up your soul, but are you really going to sacrifice 2 cards just to draw 1? And then like every time it hits, you have to counterblast, and if you don't, you lose all the cards in your soul, which basically means you lose.
Yes. I mean, reasonable people could debate at that point, but I definitely think you want to play at least some Alice, no matter what.
I think I'm going to play 4. I mean, I think you could go 3 if you run like a copy of Artilleryman, because Artilleryman can get pretty big. I think I'll personally be playing...
it can be really helpful, especially when the opponent's at 5.
I think I'll personally be playing 10 grade 3s, like 4 Alice, 4 Golden Beast Hammers, obviously, and then like 2 of the grade 3 that doesn't have an Excel marker, but that does countercharge for you.
Could be a little risky, especially in an Excel clan where you don't have that much shield to work with. Double R's, we got Blaster Rapier, Blaster Dagger, more reckless control cards. I love them.
You're going to play them in Shadows, no questions.
Unless you're trying to play like some budget build, because they don't work with Dark Dictator. We got PGs, which are PGs. Mandala Lord, very interesting. Secondary boss for Murakumo.
I'll be running him personally in my deck.
Yeah, he's a very interesting card. You could legit build a deck around him, and that's something that we don't see from a lot of double R's in Standard.
Yeah, also useful for the Kagura matchup.
Then we have Twin Swordsman Musashi.
That card's going to be fun.
Yeah, more aggression, hits for numbers. Not bad. Not bad. More PGs, which are PGs. Demon Eater, very necessary. She's probably your most ideal first turn ride. She really combos very well with Death Anchor. Just the idea of being able to go into her and just say, no sentinels, big number, and I've got a crit. And by the way, did I mention Doreen the Thruster? Yay! I am so happy to see her back, and better than ever. 5k for each soul charge, baby. Let's go! Alright, more PGs. Artilleryman. I feel like we talked about him already.
Yeah, you'll probably end up playing him. I personally won't, but maybe I'll probably change my deck up and play him if I'm not hitting enough numbers, so.
And I'm just jumping Jill.
Great card. I love that card. It's going to be fun to play that card.
Alright. As far as notable things in the lower rarities, Ghoulish Despoiler springs to mind.
Starting Presenter is one for me.
Yeah, not a lot.
Oh, Million Rats. That's probably going to be a staple. For
Million Rats, very interesting. Yeah, a lot of the... I do think Murakumo sort of lucked out on its rarity pattern, I guess you'd say, because you could easily build the deck with just double R's and below and say you don't care at all about your triple R's and aboves. It's granted a different deck, but you could easily do it.
Yo, like $10? Yeah. Sign me up.
So.
And people say Vanguard's expensive.
This set does probably have some of the best budget options, because there is a legitimate deck with support to be built around it for Mandala Lord. Ghoulish Despoiler's an amazing Vanguard, and he's a single R.
Dark Dictator from the Shadow Paladin trial deck. You could probably build a deck around him for Shadows, especially
and
since
you've
the rest of the split's so good.
You've got, what's his name, Badhabakar to back him up.
I mean, I think Pale Moon's probably going to be the only one you really can't do a budget build, because just Golden Beast Hammer is so central to strategy. But other than that, the other 3 clans, yeah, if you're a budget player, go for it. Or just build Murakumo if you want to build VRs.
So, this is interesting, because usually the topics we like to use in the grading for the set are how good it does for challenging the meta overall and how good it does for budget, and this set does a pretty amazing job for both.
Yeah, I mean, OTT's still going to reign supreme, unfortunately, but...
But you can definitely make the argument that, like, Shadow Paladin and maybe also Pale Moon and Murakumo could make, like, Tier 1.
Yeah. Just poor Aquaforce won't be viable. That makes me sad.
And I honestly think once there's a good DI deck list and once we have just a couple more cards, it's going to be amazing as well. So...
I like this set. I mean... I'm very excited to be getting 2 clans from it. It's very budget friendly, which I love.
I almost want to give this set an 100, but that's we couldn't
9.
do that. It's way too early to
I mean,
do that.
I give it a 95 just because maybe it doesn't knock OTT completely off its perch. But you know,
There's got to be something more wrong with this set. What else is wrong with you, set?
65.
65?
Really? That's interesting. What do you think is wrong with the set?
Well,
Is it because Gold Paladins aren't in it?
no, that's not why. It's because here's what's up. Like you guys probably said, it probably won't knock OTT off.
Okay.
But here's what I think. On the off chance that it does knock OTT off, because probably is, okay? I think that its favorable matchups would be against OTT if it does do that, but then everything else would be bad against. I mean, it would be bad against, basically. So what I'm saying is...
So you're saying if the meta consists of having Shadow Paladin near the top, it could become more chaotic?
I think those are fun metas, though.
No, hold on. I mean, okay, so here's what's up. Shadows would probably get stomped on by Royal Paladins.
Not really. I think it'd be the opposite, actually.
No, because Royal Paladins can just continuously call.
No, well, not really, because unless if you're running, like, Mithril Conjurer, like, you know, you have a lot of Allens, it's going to be kind of hard to recover from like, a Retire 3, because you only can call specifically Blaster Blade or a
Although
combo consistently.
You do need to mention that it is reckless, so a lot of, like, Phantom Blaster's Retire does require 3 burden on himself as well. So the idea, because Royals are at least as capable of maintaining card possession as Shadows at the moment. So it's not impossible that that ends up being a bad matchup for them.
But,
so for the set overall, what's the importance?
I think the big thing in this set is honestly going to be Shadows.
Alright, and what's that bad thing?
The bad thing?
You gave it a 65, man.
Yeah. The bad thing's going to be Murakumo.
Wait, you
Okay.
think Murakumo's going to suck?
Yeah. Okay, first of all,
Japan would disagree with you otherwise, though.
nobody runs the back row attackers.
Sure they do. They run Fushimi at 4.
Well, they run him as a beat stick, though.
Yeah.
Not a back row attacker. Second off, the back row attackers that I did have in Murakumo, I never ran. Swift Archer. That's the only back row attacker. It's a grade 2. Can only
we got it.
Yeah, it's the one that's getting remade.
Yeah. I never ran it. Never had to. Never even thought about putting it in the deck.
So
I'd rather attack a Vanguard with a Vanguard than attack a back row rear guard.
okay, so let's say even if Murakumo is bad, how does that translate to the set overall? Because I could see knocking a few points off for a bad deck, but 65?
Yeah, 65 out of 100. That's above 50, so yeah.
Because it had one bad deck?
No, because it has...
Which isn't even doing badly, by the way.
Whatever. Okay.
Like, our Japan always is very similar to Japan, or our meta is always very similar to Japan's here.
That's abjectly not true.
No. No, Andre.
For standard, it is.
Okay,
for standard it has been so far, but that's because there's been 3 sets.
Here's what's up, okay? Japan has a different way of playing than we do. So whatever's good or bad in Japan is not going to be good or bad here.
Generally, I agree with the sentiment. I still think that there's a lot of good cards in Murakumo at the moment. And so at the very least, they're going to be a solid budget option. Mm-hmm. And even if that's all they end up being... So I really want to give this set like a 90. Just because it introduces a lot of powerful things, and it also introduces a lot of very affordable things. There is a fair amount of different play styles in it as well, which is another thing we try to focus on. The only thing it's missing is like a proper control deck, which again, Shadow Paladins are still reckless control, so that's close.
Can't wait till Link Joker comes out, although it's going to be deleter, so I don't even think that'll be proper control.
Yeah.
I would prefer
we got Narukami coming out in a little bit. Mm-hmm. So there's that. So yeah, I'm giving it a 90. Andre's giving it a 95. Ryan thinks it's a 65.
Boo, Ryan, boo.
Just wait till golds come out.
Just wait till golds come out, I guess. Okay. Bit of good advice for today. Try and get more than 65 on your tests.
Also, buy Murakumo. It's cheap.
Also, buy cheap things.
Also, weakness shall not be tolerated.
Okay, you got lots of good advice today. Enjoy that. Take it to the bank. Bye-bye.